You are listening to a recording from the Cooperating to Build a Better Nova Scotia conference in Halifax, a celebration marking the United Nations International Year of Cooperatives.
Hi, Miles.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Excellent, thanks.
Enjoying the conference?
Yeah, it's very interesting. A lot of interesting initiatives that I knew nothing about, and it's interesting to see these alternatives to, full-on capitalist model being presented and being, being highlighted over a 3-day span. It's great.
Yeah. Cool. So why don't you tell us about the Halifax Media Co-op?
The Halifax Media Co-op is it's a solidarity co-op. We have 4 chapters across the country, or 4 co-ops across the country: Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, and here. It was formed in 2009, and the mandate is to report on under or unreported stories, and with a strong focus on things like labor issues, environmental rights, communities that don't often get represented. Or get represented, let's say, to their own desires within the media. So that's our mandate. What we also attempt to do first and foremost is to begin to put the power of media into people's hands that might not necessarily be used to that, or usually find themselves beholden to a mainstream media message that doesn't necessarily portray them in the light that they might want to be in.
Yeah. And how many members do you have?
Well, we have 3 types of members. We have sustaining members who either subscribe to our national magazine called The Dominion, or they sustain us on a monthly basis with a monthly donation of money to keep production going, maintain the website, pay for 2 editors. We have contributing members, and that's anybody who writes more than 4 articles a year for us that are featured, that have been reviewed by the editorial members. On the editorial collective, or the editorial members in Halifax, we have 7. And then we have numerous contributing members and even more sustaining members. And then nationally, I'm not entirely sure of the numbers, but it's definitely in the hundreds.
Yeah. So the Halifax Media Co-op is kind of like it's like a branch of a national organization?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So how long has Halifax Media Co-op been running?
It's been going since 2009, and it continues to expand every year. It's been steady growth every single year. So the model, the only thing that's sort of limiting us, I think the model is very sound. I think people, when they do begin to feel the empowerment of either representing themselves or having someone from their community represent them, whether it's the interests of a particular group that they identify with, or whether it's the environmental issues that are affecting that community, I think that's a very empowering moment in people's lives. It's the same as sort of consuming something like organic food, or growing your own food, or learning a new skill. So to be able to represent yourself and then get your message out, arguably, yes, to a smaller audience than the mainstream media gets to, but still there is that opportunity there, and that can be a wonderful moment in people's lives, and it can also change things.
Based on our experience with this community radio thing, that's definitely the case. Just people want the venue to tell their stories and get their stuff out. So what role has social media played in all this? Because of course, a lot of people say that social media is the most participatory of media types, and how do you kind of use social media and integrate it into what you do with the Halifax Media Co-op?
Yeah, I mean, obviously social media is a strong component of what we're doing, and it's a huge piece of what goes on. I think social media is an extremely strong tool, and it has given any number of people the opportunity to use the internet in a manner that for them is productive and can effectuate change. I think the way that the Halifax Media Co-op falls into that is that it provides a framework, potentially, for a variety of communities, a variety of issues to gather, learn about each other, and begin to post articles. So it's sort of a multi-use platform. There's audio, video, print, photography. So you see, like, we do offer many different services. Contribution is free. There are no gatekeepers involved, like in terms of there's no message to finesse. So we do consider ourselves, like a component of social media, and using social media. Like, I mean, part of our day, of course, is spent, using social media to get our articles out there. It's not just a matter of writing it and then people navigating to that. Yes, that does happen, but you definitely, social media, we know the strengths of social media and could always be learning to use it better, for sure.
Yeah. Now, can you give us you say you kind of cover stories that mainstream media might pick up and stuff, things that are more local issues and stuff like that. Can you give us an idea of some of the stories maybe that you've come across that where you're maybe a little surprised that the local media hasn't picked it up, or that there hasn't been broader coverage of it?
I think we're in a very interesting position right now, and in my own process as let's call me a citizen journalist or an editor of the Halifax Media Co-op, you begin to observe a number of different things that the mainstream media, in the way that they frame their messages, and then in the way that let's say citizen journalists or people from those communities will frame their own messages, is quite different. So you have things where for example, mainstream media enjoys sensationalism, enjoys, black, white, good, evil kind of stories, violence, for example, many things. So you'd see a story on mainstream media where there'll be a murder or a fire or a car accident or something like this, where those will be the attention-grabbing headlines, where there's blood, death, loss or destruction of property. It doesn't really look at necessarily the underlying causes of that. It's just sort of to keep you riveted, to grab your attention, and from day to day, and doesn't necessarily explore the root causes. So I find that we tend to veer away from that. If and when we're looking at things like homicide rates or fires in tenement buildings, etc., I feel that we'd be looking far more at the root causes of these issues rather than the one-offs that continue to sort of feed the mainstream machine. Also, what we do is, attempt to truly have community voices represented, and that's a big thing too, so that you have communities that, when you look at the gatekeepers of mainstream media, they kind of look like white people of privilege, and that in effect is me as well. I'm a white male, so I, every now and then I do need to definitely step back, because I really do enjoy making media, but on the other hand, I don't want to, people have heard from my perspective to a degree, more so than they have heard from other communities' perspectives. So the importance of having those, it can be quite revelatory when you do have people affected by issues writing, speaking, presenting media pieces about those issues. It can be far more informative. It can be far more just very, very much more grounded in reality, rather than sort of this kind of like Star Trek, or visiting a strange, everybody's human here, so visiting this kind of colony of let's see what's going on in the Indigenous community. That's all well and good, but the notion of that, especially when you put it into like a 2-minute snippet on television or something like that, doesn't always come off as representative. Not that I can speak for an Indigenous community, but doesn't always come off as a positive representation of that community. I'm not sure if that's a rambling answer or not.
That's great. It's almost like, it sounds a little bit like feminist journalism in a little way. Well, I'll give you an idea. I'm just new to the whole concept. I'm a researcher as well. So I do a lot of research where, we kind of try and step out of the traditional research model and look at the context behind any kind of statistics that we put out. Just put out the health and homelessness report yesterday. And the idea behind it's exactly what you're talking about, recognizing your place as the voice which is representing these other people's stories, and your privilege knowledge within that and just kind of like acknowledging that in a reflexive way in the way that you present that information. So it's really nice, because you really don't see that in mainstream media a whole lot, because I suspect that a lot of your contributors are kind of like emotionally connected to the stories that they're putting forward as well. You find that?
Well, I mean, I would say it's a variety of things. For example, we do have, we encourage people from who would like to be journalists, or who find themselves as journalists, but who don't really necessarily want to deal with the, let's call them the gatekeepers again, to engage in mainstream media. So we do have that component to us. We do have, myself, I love to report on environmental issues, for example, and highlight things that don't necessarily put corporations or governance first, whereas they would probably put, long-term sustainability into future generations first, and then consider, is it a success on that model, or is it a failure, and then go from there. We also do have people from different communities reporting on their own issues, and at those points, I definitely do feel that those have been some of the articles that have touched me the most. When those articles come out, I'll give you an example. We started a program with the Kitpoo Youth Program. So we started a young journalist program there. And so we had a young woman telling us about her experiences of being 17, of being between 16 to 18 and having family issues, and then being on the streets. And putting that into the context of the lack of social services that are available for youth age 16 to 18. It's an extremely powerful article to read when you see it from, a first person perspective of, this happened to me, this affected my life in this manner. And I strongly suggest that something needs to be done to address this if we're going to consider ourselves a healthy society, if we're going to be looking at, young teens as our future, then we need to support them the whole way through until they become, young adults, and even then, precisely about 2 weeks later, the mainstream media in this town, the single solitary newspaper, wrote essentially the same article. And then just basically was only able to, interview the people at the social services level, and that's all well and good, and it's good to highlight these issues however you can. But to me, and that to me is a success, because we not only pushed mainstream into looking at an article. I'm well aware that they do survey what we'd write, and then basically often write the same things, giving absolutely no credit to where it came from. And that's just something you live with. It's just what happens. It's a very, very dirty game. That's what I've learned too, is like mainstream media is it's a filthy game. I don't know why people let their egos get so wrapped up in this, but it's a massive ego trip that it seems like you shouldn't even ever mention where you got an idea from or source something. I can't understand it personally, and I don't really want any part of it. But to kind of continue on that line, when we're able to, we do pay contributors. We don't have enough money to pay them well, but we do pay them something. And when you're able to pay, a young woman who's 17, some money, like actual money, like not, to do something, to show that her opinion, her words, her research, her time is valued in that capacity. And that not only that, but we've printed it. I have a copy of it in my bag, like of a print medium that we make up once a month. I consider that to be a success, because you don't know what the domino effect of that might be. You don't know on an individual level what the effect of that might be, and you don't know what the effect might be when somebody else, a youth 16 to 18, might stumble across that article, read it, and go, I'm not alone. My perspective is being validated here. So it's an honorable thing to be doing, I believe, with my time, is attempting to make that a reality for whoever. And I think everybody should be using the site personally.
So if any of our listeners out there locally in the Halifax area want to get involved in the Halifax Media Co-op, how would they go about doing that?
We have weekly meetings where we share story ideas, we share updates on things that are going on. We share, some of the editors do show up. There's also online that you can access our editorial collective and look to them for assistance. They're every Monday, 6:30 at Humanity Cafe on Yonge and Agricola. And that's just where we hang out and talk independent media. There's also the website, which is halifax.mediacoop, which is one word, mediacoop.ca. There's also mediacoop.ca, which is news from across the country that's gathered from the variety of co-ops, which is just mediacoop.ca. And you can always email us at hmc@mediacoop.ca to get in touch with anybody on the editorial board.
And what about your social media channels, your Twitters and Facebook?
Yeah, Facebook. Find us at Halifax Media Co-op on Facebook, and we're at HFX Media Co-op on Twitter. Yeah.
Cool. Well, any closing thoughts you want to leave us with, or anything about the conference? Any exciting things that you're looking forward to, or anything like that?
I'm excited to talk to the guy from Carrot Cooperative. I'm not sure if he's coming by or
he was here.
He was here. Okay, yeah. So I'm gonna go find him and
he's around today. Yeah.
Do an interview with him.
Yeah.
It's just great to be around people that you don't need to sort of sell on the model of cooperatives, rather than just like. So it's not like you're an alien or something. Like it's already sort of a foregone conclusion that people understand that this model works and does empower people that don't necessarily have millions of dollars to start their own newspaper, start their own bank, start their own, large-scale monoculture farm, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's a positive conference. I just got here this morning. Unfortunately, I missed yesterday, so I'm interested to explore who else is here, what other kind of workshops I can attend, what other sessions I can attend to bring those lessons back to the Media Co-op and help us grow and help us, get greater visibility, get more reporters on the ground. So it's all good here.